The chamber was built to make visitors feel small. It worked on every species that had ever entered it. 12,000 years of careful design. Walls that curved upward into darkness. 847 holographic seats arranged in a spiral that seemed to go on forever. Light that came from nowhere and everywhere at once. Kang Do-yoon sat at the defendant's podium and poured himself a cup of tea. The smell of bergamot drifted upward. Several nearby representatives made sounds of disgust. The Velith delegate, a creature of woven light and crystalline threads, actually flickered in offense. Do-yoon took a slow sip and smiled. He had brought his favorite cup. White ceramic with a small chip on the handle. His daughter had made it in a pottery class when she was 7. She was 43 now, with children of her own, and Do-yoon still carried this cup to every meeting that mattered. The aliens found this behavior disturbing. They did not understand why humans formed attachments to damaged objects. They did not understand many things about humans. This was, in fact, the problem. The triumvirate voice spoke first. It always spoke first. 3 species had founded this council 12 millennia ago, and they had never let anyone forget it. The voice was not one being but 3. Their thoughts merged into a single resonant chord that filled the chamber like thunder wrapped in silk. The council recognizes the representative of Earth. You stand accused of crimes against galactic stability. How do you respond? Do-yoon set down his cup. The small click echoed in the vast space. I am listening, he said. Not I plead innocent. Not I demand to know the charges. Just 3 words that gave nothing away. In the observer gallery, a young diplomat named Keth watched the human with all 6 of his eyes. Keth belonged to a prey species. His people had evolved on a world where everything larger than them wanted to eat them. They had developed 17 different words for fear because survival depended on knowing exactly what kind of danger you faced. Keth was trying to decide which word applied to the human. None of them fit. The charges took 3 hours to read. Biological contamination risk. Psychological instability. Predatory social structures. Uncontrolled technological acceleration. Cultural imperialism. Emotional manipulation of other species. The evidence was extensive. Humans fought each other constantly. They had nearly destroyed their own planet twice before even reaching space. They formed irrational attachments to animals, machines, and even enemy soldiers. They found joy in competition and called defeat a learning experience. They smiled when they were angry. They laughed at death. The galaxy had been watching Earth for 2 centuries. The more they watched, the more afraid they became. Do-yoon listened to all of it. He did not interrupt. He did not take notes. He drank his tea and watched the holographic displays cycle through images of human history. Wars, famines, environmental disasters, and then, somehow, recovery. Always recovery. Humans fell down and got back up with broken bones and bloody grins. The triumvirate voice summarized the findings. Humanity represents a unique and unacceptable threat to galactic peace. Your species learns too fast, adapts too readily, bonds too easily. You are, by every measurable standard, apex predators who have learned to disguise themselves as social creatures. The Council cannot permit such a species to spread beyond its home system. Do-yoon refilled his cup. The tea was getting cold, but he did not mind. And your sentence? He asked. Total quarantine. Effective immediately. All human vessels will be escorted to your solar system. A boundary field will be established at the edge of your space. This boundary will be permanent. No human ship will ever cross it again. No alien vessel will ever enter. You will live and die alone, separated from the galaxy you have proven yourselves unworthy to join. The chamber waited. 847 species watched the lone human at the defendant's podium. They expected rage, despair, pleading, threats. Humans were emotional creatures. Everyone knew this. Do-yoon finished his tea. We accept. The silence that followed was so complete that Keth could hear his own heartbeat. All 3 of them, pounding in confused rhythm. You accept. The triumvirate voice lost its perfect harmony for just a moment. 3 separate tones, 3 separate confusions. Yes. Your terms are acceptable. We will return to our solar system. You will seal the boundary. We will not attempt to cross it. Do-yoon stood and tucked his cup into his jacket. We will see ourselves out. He walked toward the exit. His footsteps were the only sound in the chamber. Keth watched him go. The human's posture was relaxed. His stride was unhurried. His hands were not shaking. This was wrong. This was very wrong. Keth's people had a word for the fear you felt when a predator stopped chasing you. When it sat down and watched you run with patient eyes. When it let you go because it knew something you did not. He had never had reason to use that word before. Do-yoon paused as he passed the Triumvirate Voices platform. He leaned close. His lips moved, forming words too soft for any microphone to catch. Then he continued walking. The doors closed behind him. The Triumvirate voice did not move for 3 hours. Representatives tried to speak to it. Aides approached with questions. It ignored them all, frozen in place, 3 minds locked in a loop of something that might have been fear or might have been the first cold touch of understanding. Keth left the gallery on unsteady legs. He returned to his quarters and pulled up everything he could find about human history. He read for days. He learned about a human concept called the long game. He learned that humans measured victory in generations, not years. He learned that their favorite stories were about underdogs who lost everything and came back stronger. They told these stories to their children. They built their entire culture around the idea that defeat was temporary and revenge was patient. Keth stopped reading. He looked at the star charts. He found Sol, the tiny yellow sun that would soon be caged behind an impenetrable barrier. The humans had accepted their punishment without a fight. The humans had smiled. Keth's people had 17 words for fear. He invented an 18th. The human ships moved in perfect formation. Thousands of them, streaming back toward Earth like a river flowing in reverse.
Cargo vessels.
Research stations.
Colonie transport.
Even the tiny personal craft that humans loved so much, the ones they decorated with names and painted with bright colors. All of them going home. The Galactic Council had expected resistance. They had prepared 500 warships to escort the humans out. They had calculated a 30% chance of violence and a 70% chance of attempted negotiation. They had not calculated for this. Complete obedience. Not a single complaint. Not one ship that strayed from the designated path. It made them nervous in ways they could not name. Admiral Park Yuna stood on the bridge of the UES Patience and watched the stars slide by. She was 64 years old. Her hair had gone grey at the temples, and her hands carried the scars of 30 years in space. She had started as an asteroid miner, wrestling rocks the size of cities into processing facilities. She had ended up commanding the largest human fleet ever assembled. Now she was leading that fleet back to a cage. Her officers were trying very hard not to smile. They were not succeeding. "Admiral," her first officer said, "we have received confirmation. The last human vessel has crossed the boundary marker. All citizens have been accounted for." "Good." Yuna turned to face her crew. "Signal the fleet. Begin Phase 2. The message went out. 10,000 ships received it. 10,000 crews let their smiles finally show. Back on Earth, in a facility buried deep beneath the mountains of Korea, Chief Engineer Park Sun-woo pressed a button. He had not slept in 4 years. The medical team had given up asking him to rest. His body did not need sleep anymore, not after the modifications he had tested on himself. Side effects included persistent headaches, an inability to dream, and perfect recall of every moment he had experienced since the procedure. He remembered the day the Council announced their intention to quarantine Earth. He remembered the emergency meeting where humanity's leaders gathered to discuss their response. He remembered the moment when Kang Do-yoon walked in with a cup of tea and a folder full of papers. The folder contained Project Veil. 40 years of secret development. Hidden in plain sight. Built piece by piece while the aliens watched and judged and found humanity wanting. Sun-woo pressed the button, and the first node activated. A shimmer passed through the solar system. It was visible for exactly 1 second, a ripple in the fabric of space itself, and then it was gone. If you were not looking for it, you would never know anything had changed. The Council's monitoring probes stopped transmitting. One by one, their signals died. The boundary prevented the Council from sending replacements. That was the whole point of the quarantine, after all. Nothing in. Nothing out. They had built their own blindfold. Inside the veil, humanity's true face revealed itself. Orbital foundries unfolded from asteroids where they had hidden for decades. Generation ships powered up their engines for the first time. Weapons platforms that official records listed as mining equipment turned their sensors outward and began to watch. Earth had been building while the galaxy studied them. Earth had been planning while the Council debated. Earth had been patient. So very patient. Imnari sat in her quarters aboard the Patience and composed a message. She was the only human who spoke all three languages of the triumvirate species. She was the only human who truly understood what the Council feared. She found the whole situation hilarious. Her message was not for the Council. It was for one person, Observer Keth, the young diplomat who had watched Do-Yoon's exit with such obvious confusion. Nari had studied him during the trial. She had seen the way his 6 eyes tracked the human delegate. She had recognized something rare in an alien, curiosity without hostility. Her message contained one word in his native language. The word meant hide. She did not explain. She did not need to. Either he would understand or he would not. Humans could not save everyone. They could only leave doors open for those smart enough to walk through them. Admiral Yuna called a fleet-wide assembly. Every ship, every crew, every human who had spent years pretending to be weaker than they were. Her face appeared on 10,000 screens. They wanted us contained, she said. Her voice was calm and warm, the voice of a grandmother telling a bedtime story. They looked at us and saw something dangerous. Something they could not control. So they built a wall around us and told themselves they were safe. She paused. Let the silence stretch. They forgot to check what we were building while they watched us. The veil was not a prison. It was a chrysalis. And inside it, humanity was becoming something new. The generation ships would take 30 years to reach their destinations. They would travel outside Council space, through the dark void between galaxies where no one ever looked. 12 ships. 12 directions. 2 million humans each, carrying everything Earth had ever created. They were not fleeing. They were seeds. On Keth's homeworld, the message arrived. He read it 17 times, trying to understand. One word. Hide. He thought about the human delegate and his patient smile. He thought about the ships returning home without protest. He thought about the sudden silence from every monitoring probe. Keth was a prey species. His entire evolution had been shaped by the need to recognize danger before it was too late. He began to pack. Back on Earth, Sun Wu activated the second node. Then the third. The veil grew stronger with each one, a barrier that blocked all signals, all scans, all attempts to see what was happening inside. The galaxy had sentenced humanity to isolation. Humanity accepted the sentence. And in the darkness behind the veil, they began to change. 50 years passed. The galaxy moved on. New species were discovered. Old empires rose and fell. Trade routes shifted. Wars were fought and forgotten. The Galactic Council continued its endless debates about borders and resources and proper behavior. No one talked about Earth anymore. It became a story. A warning. Something parents told their children when they misbehaved. Be good, or you will end up like the humans. Alone. Forgotten. Locked away in the dark. Teachers used Earth as an example in history classes. Here is what happens to species that cannot control themselves. Here is the price of instability. The lessons were dry and brief. There was not much to say about a species that no longer existed in any meaningful way. The boundary held firm. The veil behind it remained silent. Once every few years, someone would propose sending a probe to check on the quarantine zone. The proposal would be discussed, debated, and eventually rejected. Why waste resources on a dead world? Besides, the silence was proof that the decision had been correct. Dangerous species did not go quietly. They fought. They screamed. They tried to break free. The fact that humanity had done none of these things only showed how weak they truly were. The Council had been wise to remove them before they could cause real damage. This is what the galaxy told itself. Observer Keth, now Elder Keth, did not believe any of it. He had retired to a small moon at the edge of Council space. His official record said he was writing a history of first contact protocols. This was a lie. He was watching. Every night, he pointed his personal sensors at the coordinates where Sol should be. He saw nothing. The veil blocked everything. But he kept watching anyway, because he remembered the smile on Kang Do-yoon's face. That smile had not been the expression of a defeated man. Keth had lived for 112 years. He had seen many species face judgment. Some begged. Some threatened. Some collapsed into despair. He had never seen one accept total isolation with a grin. The humans knew something. He was certain of it. He just could not figure out what. Inside the veil, time moved differently. Not physically. The laws of nature remained unchanged. But human perception of time had shifted. When you could live for 300 years, a decade felt like a season. Bak Sun-woo stood in his laboratory and watched his latest creation take its first breath. The child was 6 months old. Her genes had been edited before conception, her development guided by technologies that did not exist 50 years ago. She would never get sick. She would never age past her physical prime. She would live for centuries, maybe longer, with a mind sharper than any human in history. She was not the first. She was number 10,000. Sun-woo himself had changed. The modifications he had tested on himself all those years ago were primitive compared to what they had now. He looked 40 despite being over 100. His mind held memories of every moment since the veil went up. He remembered every face, every conversation, every small victory and failure. He remembered why they were doing this. Kang Do-yoon was still alive. Still drinking tea. Still smiling that patient smile that had haunted the triumvirate voice. He chaired the Long Strategy Council now, a group of the oldest and wisest humans who met once every 5 years to review the plan. The plan had phases. They were currently in Phase 4. The seeds have reached their destinations, Admiral Park Yuna reported. She was 114 years old. Medical technology had kept her sharp, but her hair had gone completely white. She wore it like a crown. All 12 generation ships report successful landfall. Colonies are self-sufficient. Industrial capacity is online. Do-yoon nodded. And the children? Growing up. Yuna pulled up a hologram. 12 points of light, scattered across the galactic rim. 2 million per colony. 3rd generation now. They have never seen an alien. They have trained their entire lives for the day they will. Good. Do-yoon sipped his tea. The cup was the same one, white ceramic with a chip on the handle. His daughter had made it. His daughter was dead now, but her children lived, and their children, and theirs. The cup remained. Phase 5 begins in 10 years. Is everything ready? Imnari's great-grandson, a young man named Jinho, answered. He had inherited his ancestors' gift for languages and her dark sense of humor. The veil will drop on schedule. All 12 fleets will emerge simultaneously. The Council will have approximately 6 hours to panic before they realize what is happening. 6 hours is generous, Yuna said. I give them 3. Do-yoon smiled. It showed teeth. On his distant moon, Elder Keth felt something change. He could not explain it. His senses showed nothing. The veil remained dark and silent. But somewhere deep in his prey species instincts, something stirred. He thought about the word Imnari had sent him 50 years ago. Hide. He had hidden. He had waited. He had watched an entire galaxy convince itself that silence meant weakness. Now that silence felt different. It felt like the held breath before a shout. Keth looked at the empty coordinates where Earth should be. He thought about predators. His people knew predators better than any species in the galaxy. They knew how lions waded in tall grass. How spiders sat motionless in their webs. How snakes could remain still for hours before striking. The most dangerous predators were not the loud ones. The most dangerous predators were the patient ones. Keth began to write a message. He did not know who to send it to. No one would believe him. But he wrote it anyway, because someone needed to record what was about to happen. The message was simple. They are not silent because they are dead. They are silent because they are ready. He looked at the stars. He waited. The veil dropped on a Tuesday. No one in the galaxy knew it was a Tuesday. Humans had kept their calendar running behind the barrier, counting days and weeks and years even when no one else cared. It seemed important to remember what day it was. The shimmer passed through the solar system again, the same ripple that had appeared 50 years ago, but in reverse. One moment the veil was there. The next moment it was gone. Sensors across the galaxy screamed. The Council received the alert in the middle of a debate about mining rights in the outer sectors. Boring work. Important to someone, probably. The kind of thing that filled most of galactic governance. The alert changed everything. The human quarantine zone has gone dark, an aide announced. All boundary sensors have stopped functioning. The triumvirate voice shifted its attention. Three minds focused on a problem they had not thought about in decades. Explain. We cannot scan the system. Something is blocking us. The boundary field is still active, but we cannot see past it. Send probes. They sent probes. The probes reached the boundary and transmitted nothing. Not destruction. Not interference. Just silence. Then the reports started coming from the galactic rim. Ships. Human ships. Hundreds of them appearing at the edge of council space. But not near Earth. Not anywhere near Earth. They were appearing from 12 different directions at once. Parker Sol stood on the bridge of the UES Remembrance and watched the chaos unfold. She was 32 years old, born on a generation ship, raised on a colony world that the galaxy did not know existed. She had never seen an alien in person. She had studied them her entire life. She was not impressed. All fleets report successful emergence, her first officer said. Council forces are mobilizing, but they do not know which direction to face. Good. Isol looked at the tactical display. 12 fleets. 12 points of light at the galactic rim. The Council's forces were concentrated in the center, protecting the old trade routes, the ancient homeworlds, the seats of power that had ruled for 12,000 years. They were in the wrong place. Open a broadcast, Isol said. All frequencies. Her face appeared on every screen in Council space. Every station, every ship, every colony. A young woman with sharp eyes and a calm voice. This is Admiral Parker Sol of the Human Confederation. 50 years ago, your council banished my species to our home system. You sealed us away and forgot about us. You thought the story was over. She paused. Let them see her smile. We are not here to rejoin your council. We are here to build our own. You are welcome to apply for membership. The message ended. The chaos doubled. Emergency sessions convened across council space. Representatives demanded answers. Military commanders demanded orders. The triumvirate voice demanded that someone explain how humans had appeared outside the quarantine zone. The explanation was simple, once they thought about it. The quarantine had sealed the boundaries of human space. It had prevented any ship from crossing in or out. It had been perfect. It had also been focused entirely on the wrong direction. Humans had not tried to break through the boundary. They had gone around it. Through the void between galaxies, through the empty darkness where no one ever looked, traveling for 30 years in ships designed to sustain generations. The Council had built a wall. Humanity had walked around it. Kang Do-yoon arrived at the Council chamber 3 days later. He was 164 years old. Medical technology had kept his body strong, but he chose to walk with a slight stoop. It made people underestimate him. He brought his cup of tea. The triumvirate voice was waiting. Three minds that had ruled the galaxy for 12 millennia, now facing a species they had tried to erase from history. You broke the quarantine, the voice said. No. Do-yoon settled into his seat. The same podium where he had sat 50 years ago. We never crossed your boundary. Check your records. Not a single human ship entered or exited through the quarantine zone. You cheated. We adapted. Do-yoon sipped his tea. Still Earl Grey. Still from the same cup. You looked at us and saw a threat. You were right. But you made a mistake. You thought containing us would make you safe. You forgot that we evolved on a world where everything tried to kill us. Adaptation is what we do. The voice shifted. Three minds struggling to find words. What do you want? Nothing you have. Your council is 12,000 years old. It is slow and afraid and dedicated to keeping things exactly as they are. We are building something new. Faster. Braver. Open to anyone willing to grow. You cannot simply create a rival government. We already have. Do-yoon set down his cup. 12 colony worlds. Full industrial capacity. Millions of citizens who have never known your rules. We did not ask your permission. We do not need it. Elder Keth entered the chamber. He was not supposed to be there. He did not care. One question, he said to Do-yoon. His voice was old and tired. 50 years ago. When you left this chamber, you whispered something to the triumvirate voice. What did you say? Do-yoon looked at him. For a moment, something warm flickered in his eyes. Recognition. Respect. I told them what we are. What we have always been. He smiled. It showed teeth. Patience is a predator trait. The voice did not respond. Keth understood. He had always understood, on some level. The humans had not been imprisoned. They had been freed. Given 50 years without supervision, without judgment, without the constant pressure of a galaxy that feared them. They had used every single day. Your council can continue, Do-yoon said. We will not destroy it. We will not attack it. We will simply exist as an alternative. Species that want to join you still can. Species that want something different now have a choice. He stood. That is the most dangerous thing we could have done, and you know it. He walked out. The triumvirate voice finally spoke, 3 voices in broken harmony. We should have destroyed them when we had the chance. But they had not. And now it was too late. The Human Confederation did not conquer. It invited. 12 colony worlds at the galactic rim, each one a beacon. Free trade. Open borders. No species restrictions. No ancient hierarchies deciding who could go where and do what. Just opportunity for anyone brave enough to take it. The prey species came first. They arrived in small ships, nervous and watchful, expecting a trap. They found something else entirely. Human cities were loud and chaotic and full of creatures from 100 different worlds, all of them arguing and laughing and building things together. No one asked them to bow. No one told them their place. They stayed. Word spread. More ships came. Not just prey species now. Engineers from declining worlds. Scientists whose research had been forbidden by council regulations. Artists whose work had been deemed destabilizing. Anyone who had ever looked at the old order and wondered if there was something better. The council watched this happen with growing alarm. They called it theft. They called it manipulation. They called it exactly the kind of predatory behavior they had warned about. They were not entirely wrong. Humans did not pretend to be saints. They were competitive. They were aggressive. They found joy in struggle and growth and proving themselves. But they had learned something important during their 50 years of isolation. Those traits could build instead of destroy. Imnari's journals were published 20 years after her death. Her great-grandson, Im Jinho, edited them carefully and released them to every species that would listen. The journals told the story of the quarantine from a human perspective. The fear, the anger, the long arguments about what to do, and then the decision. They feared our violence, Nari had written in her final entry. They should have feared our patience. Violence ends. Patience builds. The words spread across the galaxy. They appeared on walls and screens and in the minds of species who had spent millennia being told that peace meant obedience. The council fractured. It happened slowly at first. A minor species here, a trade partner there. Then faster. 3 of the founding members withdrew from the triumvirate, unable to agree on how to respond to the human threat. Ancient alliances crumbled. New ones formed. The prey species were the boldest. They had spent their entire existence being protected by the council. Protected and controlled. Given safety in exchange for dependence. Now they saw another option. Keth's people were the first full alien members of the Human Confederation. Elder Keth himself stood on the deck of a human station and watched his children's children play with human children. They were learning each other's games. Mixing them together. Inventing new ones that neither species would have created alone. He became a teacher. Human children listened with wide eyes as he told them about the old galaxy. The rules. The hierarchies. The careful arrangements that kept everyone in their place. They found it strange and sad. Why did they want everything to stay the same? A young girl asked him once. Keth thought about it for a long time. Because change is frightening, he said. And the humans taught them that change could also be beautiful. Kang Do-yoon died on a spring morning, 187 years old. He was surrounded by family. 4 generations of children and grandchildren filled the room. His cup sat on the table beside him, the white ceramic with the chip on the handle. His last words were simple. Told them we would see ourselves out. Parkasol gave his eulogy. She did not cry. She grinned. He always said the best revenge is making them wish they had been nicer. Second best is making them irrelevant. She looked out at the crowd. Humans and aliens together, mourning a man who had changed the course of history with patience and tea. He got both. The galaxy continued to change. A century passed. Then two. The old council became a regional power, no longer the center of everything. The Human Confederation grew and evolved, absorbing new ideas from every species that joined it. Humanity itself changed, mixing with aliens in ways that horrified traditionalists on both sides. Children were born who belonged to no single species. Cultures blended. Languages merged. The sharp line between human and alien became blurry and then meaningless. This was the true victory. Not conquest. Not domination. Just the slow, patient work of becoming something new together. The old council chamber became a museum. Tourists visited from across the galaxy. They stood at the defendant's podium and took pictures. They read the plaques that explained what had happened here. The trial. The verdict. The smile. A young girl stood with her mother, looking at the spot where King Do-yoon had Saturday. The girl had her father's 4 eyes and her mother's human grin. She belonged to both worlds and neither. Why did they banish us? She asked. Her mother thought about it. The question was complicated. It involved fear and prejudice and 12,000 years of careful control. It involved the terror of meeting something you could not predict or contain. She simplified. Because they looked at us and saw monsters. The girl considered this. Were they wrong? Her mother smiled. It showed teeth. No. They just did not realize monsters could be kind. They walked out of the museum together, into a city that would have been impossible a few centuries ago. Alien and human architecture mixed together. Languages from 100 worlds filled the air. Somewhere nearby, a group of children were playing a game that combined 3 different cultural traditions into something entirely new. The galaxy had tried to imprison humanity. Instead, it had freed them. And in their freedom, they had freed everyone else. The old triumvirate voice still existed, diminished and quiet. 3 ancient minds watching a universe they no longer controlled. They remembered the human delegate with his cup of tea. They remembered his smile. They finally understood it. The smile had not been defiance. It had been gratitude. Thank you, Do-yoon had meant. Thank you for giving us exactly what we needed. Time. Isolation. A reason to become something new. The monsters had learned to be kind. And the galaxy would never be the same.